Hello and welcome to Real Health with me, Karl, Henry, in association with Laya Healthcare. Folks, as you know, the show is all about practical advice and information that makes healthy living real and long-term. And I'm really delighted to say my guest this week is a fantastic example of this. She's a mum who, via her Instagram account, Jen's Journey, has taken her on her very honest journey of weight loss, which has seen her lose 12 stone to go from 25 stone down to just over 12. She's now a huge advocate of healthy eating and healthy living. Jennifer Carroll, welcome to Real Health. How are you?
Hi, Carl. Thank you. I'm good. How are you?
I'm getting inspired just listening to the introduction there as I read it out. 12 stone is an incredible amount of weight loss.
Yeah.
How did you do it? Let's start there.
The first 10 stone I lost in the first year. So it was 12 months and I'd lost 10 stone. And that was actually through Slimming World. So I started doing Slimming World at home. And then for the second year, I kind of focused more on like calories and protein and training a lot more. And I lost the last 2 stone in that year. But the first 10 stone, the first big bulk, that was through Slimming World, which really helped me and I loved it. But I kind of just grew out of it, I suppose.
And what was, I suppose, before Slimming World, what were the biggest mistakes that you were making? What were the biggest changes that you adapted, when you went to Slimming World and applied the plan?
Yeah, I think the biggest change for me, I think people are always expecting me to say like, gave up takeaways, I gave up that. I genuinely think looking back now, my biggest change was my mindset. Like the biggest thing that I changed was the way I spoke to myself and kind of my self-belief. That was a massive thing that I struggled with, kind of confidence. But diet-wise, I always skipped breakfast, didn't really eat a lot during the day, and then I just binged at night. And I wasn't moving at all. Like walking to the shops was kind of the most exercise I was getting.
Wow. And was weight something that I suppose, you're always conscious of, even in terms of growing up? Was it something you're always aware of? Was it always an issue or?
Yeah, I was always overweight, I think, from a very young age. I think looking back now, when I was kind of a teenager and I thought I was huge, I wasn't as big as I thought I was then, but I was always very aware of it. I was always overweight, but I think it started to get a little bit dangerous when I kind of hit at like about 18, 19. That's when it really started piling on. But it makes me sad. It is something that it's always been very relevant in my day-to-day life. And even from a very young child, I was always the fat friend, or I was always the fat child. So I definitely knew I was like different in that way. It stood out and it held me back, I suppose, in a lot. That's kind of, I suppose, my biggest regret. It did hold me back a lot as a child because I was conscious about it.
Okay. And in terms of, the one thing I know you said before that you were anxious and you had a fear of being out in public and falling or tripping just in case someone caught it on camera and it went viral. Yeah. So the whole concept of growing up in that social media era, was something that really affected you.
Yeah, it's that. I just remember I was just afraid of people laughing at me. And because I was bigger, I don't know, if I was clumsy or something happened, I just felt like they wouldn't be laughing because I was falling, like they'd be laughing because I was fat and I fell. Like that was always the first thing that stuck out. Or if I would be aware of people. I mean, I think sometimes people think you're being a bit paranoid, but there are times when it's obvious people might be like recording you or talking about you and you pick up on that. But there were times as well where it was so in my head that I might fall or trip and somebody would laugh and I would instantly get like defensive of me. You're laughing because I'm fat, and they'd be like, oh no, I'm laughing because you fell. Like, and it's funny. But like in my head, it was always like, and I think on social media as well, social media became really big just as I was hitting my late teens early, especially Facebook. And it was very relevant. And I think it has such an impact on the way we view like how people should look and the way people are. And I think that had a massive effect on my confidence as well, because it would hold me back from kind of sharing a lot on social media, which is funny because now it's ironic because I share everything on social media.
I was just going to ask you that question. So at what point did you decide that you would use Instagram as a platform to get healthier or to inspire other people? And that's grown exponentially. Like, I followed you for a long time. I've seen that growth. It's been incredible to see. Where did that thought process come from? Because you were afraid of social media to a point, and then to be brave enough to put your story through Instagram. How did that come about?
I was already about 6 or 7 months into my journey. So I think I was down 5.5 stone, about 5 stone when I actually started the Instagram. And it was really just for me, it was to keep me accountable. I didn't set it up to be like a public page. I had followed people on Instagram that shared recipes that helped I suppose, lose weight and just encourage kind of more healthy eating. And I loved that idea because it really did help me. So I set the Instagram page up just to keep me accountable. And I remember thinking, if I just share my 3 meals a day and post my 3 meals a day, it will just be something to keep me going. So I set that up. And I never planned on coming on. I think when it eventually did go public, it was about 5 months, I think, before I even put a picture of myself, or like I never spoke to the camera. But it was just really helping with my confidence. I think I'd held back for so long. And then the social media thing came along. And when I was sharing the meals, so many people were reaching out to say, like, it's really helping me and it's great. And I remember just thinking I built connections with people, but nobody knew who I was. So then I just decided I would share everything. And it kind of just grew really quickly. I think people really like watching, they enjoy watching someone when they're having like a successful journey, and they enjoy watching it. And in the beginning, especially, I would share like a lot of, you know, kind of like cheesy quotes or motivational quotes, but they genuinely did help me. And I think like when you can look at a quote and be like, okay, whatever, but like when you really look at the quote or read it and apply it to your life or something in your life, I think that really helps me stay focused. And I could see that was encouraging other people as well. Social media can be like scary at times, but I think for me, like, thank God, it's never been, I haven't really received like a lot of negativity. So it kept me going. And even now, like, I find it really encouraging sometimes, like if I'm having a bad week, like even looking at my old posts or looking at other people's mail, it can be a little bit inspiring to kind of just get back on it and give me new ideas and just keep me a bit more focused, I suppose.
And do you find pressure comes with the social media and the size of that Instagram account? Like, do you find that brings pressure, and do you use that positively, or do you find, you know, that it can be a negative pressure too? You know?
Yeah, like it can be negative, and sometimes it can be like a kick in the ass that I need sometimes. But I do think, like, I remember I used to, more so when I was in Slimming World, because you get weighed weekly, I would post my loss every week. And I remember it got to a point where I'd kind of lost the 11, 12 stone, and the losses were slowing down a lot because obviously I was getting to, like, I suppose, more healthier weight. And I remember then people kind of saying like, oh, you're not really posting your weight anymore. And then I felt pressure being like, oh, I need to keep doing this. And then I remember thinking, no, I set the Instagram up for me, for what works for me and what helps me. It did get to a little point where I felt like I was posting stuff or sharing things that I felt like other people needed or wanted to see, but it wasn't benefiting me in any way. So when, like, I know people don't believe you when you say it, but like when I post stuff on Instagram, it's not for the likes, it's not for other people. Yeah, I'd be delighted if I knew it helped someone, but like I didn't set the Instagram up to get 100,000 followers. And I think sometimes I'm surprised, like genuinely surprised that many people follow, because I think my food can be very boring and very simple. It's healthy food, but I think people just enjoy, like I said, the whole process of like seeing someone, I suppose, staying like, and it's not even the motivation, I hate that word. It's not that I'm motivated for 2 years. It hasn't been that at all, but just the consistency and just kind of reminding people that, I don't know, like you can fall off the wagon or have your bad few days, but it's just reminding yourself to be consistent and to get back into a routine. Like I've had a few months now where I feel like on social media people have been like, you don't really post pictures of your, you know, side by sides or your weight loss. And it's like, because I just don't feel like it. And people might be like, yeah, but are you gaining weight? And I'm like, well, yeah, I'd say since before Christmas I have gained close to a stone. But that's not why I'm posting the pictures. It's just because I don't feel like posting the pictures. And then people might get a little bit negative then, because they're like, but it really encourages me when I see that. And I'm like, well then, like, post a picture of yourself. And that's what I mean, like, I'm not doing it for the likes or for other people. Like, I genuinely just do it to keep myself accountable, and it just helps me and encourages me.
When people lose a large amount of weight, and something I've seen in the past, there's generally a trigger point. So there's a point at which it's almost like a switch goes off and you decide to make those changes and, you know, and be accountable. What was the trigger point for you?
The trigger, so like there was a kind of a big backstory, I suppose, before the start of the weight loss journey. So I'd been in London for 10 years and I'd been trained in acting, and that was my thing. Loved drama. I was in London for a long time, and I was in a relationship and I fell pregnant. The relationship unfortunately went very sour, and there was domestic violence. So that, I think, was the main thing. So once I separated from my partner, my little boy was just after, he was about 1.5, and then we didn't get to move back to Ireland until he was about 2. And I remember it was about 2 weeks before, maybe 3 or 4 weeks actually, about a month before we moved back to Ireland, where I was like, okay, I'd bought a weighing scales. The weighing scales, I wouldn't even tell me my weight because I stood on that and they were like, error. And I was like, I'm definitely a big number. And I think the max capacity was like 22 stone. And I'd never weighed myself in a long, long time, but I had an idea that I was thinking I was about 22 stone. So then I had to go and buy a special Weight Watchers weighing scales. And I remember it was near 26 stone. And I was like, oh my God. And I knew I was moving back to Ireland, and I just knew that I was definitely a single parent. I was on my own, my little boy Carter. And I always say it, but genuinely I was like, I need to get fit to give him kind of the life I want him to have. And like, I want to be a part of his life. I want to take part in like daily events, like even things like sports day was coming into my head. And I was like, I don't want to be, and like I said, I always thought people looked at me and just saw the weight and they would laugh. So it's like, I don't want people to laugh at Carter's mom and him to get embarrassed. And I just wanted to get healthy. And I knew obviously at 26 stone, and I was only 27 at the time, that was not going to be possible. And it was the first time I think it really scared me. I think as I was gaining weight, like through my 20s and getting bigger, I never had luckily I never had like a scare or like a health issue. I was like relatively healthy considering my size. And I think because I never had that scare, it never came into my head. But I think that was the first time where I was like, I'm kind of eating myself into an early grave here. Like you don't get to 30 stone or 30 plus stone, and you know, like where does it go from there? So I kind of knew then that was my moment where like, and I wish I could say I'd done it for me, but I do think he was kind of my why. I think you definitely always have to have a why. And your why can change. Like my why is different this week to what it was last week, but I still have my why and I still have my purpose, and that's kind of what keeps me going. But that was definitely, I would say, my wake up call.
Yeah, of course. What that why has to be strong enough to get you through those tough times, or to get you through the hard weeks, or when things are difficult. And you know, having your son is a perfect why. It's probably the ultimate why. And did friends and family ever try to encourage you to get healthy or to lose weight, or trying to kind of nudge you in a healthier direction? And how did you react to that when they did?
They definitely did. I think like now growing up and being older and even being a mom, I do understand so much like how difficult it was for my parents, because I think I was just angry, and I was obviously angry because of my size, and I was very like I would just be on the attack all the time. So I think it got to a point where Mom and Dad were, they would try like bring it up like in a nice way, and especially because I was in London for 10 years, so every time they came over it was only every couple of months. And I remember my mom saying like every time I got off the plane I would be just a little bit like, oh, I would love to get off and see that she'd maybe started getting a bit healthier. She's like, but it was like every time I got off you were getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And but she would never say that to me. Sometimes she might suggest things like, oh, you could do this, you could do that, but I'd be on the defense straight away. And I would shut them down. And I think to just kind of save causing arguments, they knew not to constantly bring it up. But they were always very good about it. My friends as well, I was lucky. I would always, you know, I would be doing a diet every other month, and I would probably be texting them, be like, no, I really think this is the time, like it's going to work for me. And they'd be so encouraging, and then I just wouldn't like bring it up again. But they would never kind of chase me up on it. They would always help and encourage me and send ideas. But I think it's that whole thing again where like nobody, no matter how much people say it to you, like you're not going to do it or start it until you want to. And like when I said I'd started and I failed, your friends, like even though they might be a bit like, oh, it didn't work, they're not really going to care. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not like the only person that cares is yourself. Like every time I started and failed, it was only me that had to kind of live with it or had to like think about it all the time, whereas my friends might be a little bit disappointed, but they loved me. Do you know what I mean? They were going to be there for me no matter what. So if I tried a diet and failed, it didn't bother them. But when I did start and I kind of really was going with it, they were brilliant. Like they worked their lives around me to make sure that I could still, you know, go for meals, or like our activities might turn into walking or going to the gym and stuff like that, rather than what we would normally do. And even going out for food, they'd make sure to pick restaurants that they knew I'd have an option in. So like Eddie Rockets was no longer like our number one spot.
So having that positive support network was really important, and having them kind of work with you along the way
Yeah.
was really important. When you decided to lose weight, the first couple of stone, the big change was food for you. What were
Yeah.
the big swaps that you made, and what really worked for you in terms of those swaps?
I think the biggest swaps were, like, I think people think I always ate a lot of fast food. I think just because when you're that side, you assume that. I genuinely did always cook from scratch, but it was things like I said, having the 3 meals. And I know people always say that having the breakfast, lunch, and dinner makes a difference, but it really did. Like when I had my breakfast, lunch, and dinner, if I was cooking my dinner, I'd be hungry, but hungry enough that I could wait. Whereas if I skipped lunch and breakfast and lunch, and I was cooking my dinner, I'd probably be having bread and butter while I was cooking it. I'd be having toast. I'd be picking at everything as I was cooking. So just having simple things and making small changes, like rather than like frying things in a lot of oil, I started just using a bit of spray oil. I baked a lot. I was including a lot more vegetables. So like I always kind of make sure, it's a bit of a Slimming World hack, but like having at least a third or a half of my plate is veg, and then some protein and a little bit of carbs or whatever else it was. But just making sure I had those 3 meals. Now, for the first few months when I was on Slimming World, because my thing is chocolate, that's just my absolute downfall. Like, I could live on chocolate for the rest of my life. I made sure that I had saved up, you know, my calories or my sins or whatever it was at the end of the day to have my chocolate bar. And I'd done that every single day for like, I think 2 or 3 months, and I'd lost 3 or 4 stone. But I think it got to a point where I was like, yeah, I can have the chocolate bar every day and I'm still losing weight, but it's not the healthiest. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to be having, and then I was making substitutes for really low calorie sweet things. So I'd be having a little chocolate bar, a sweet yogurt, a sweet thing, because it fit in the calories, but it was still a lot of sugar and sweeteners. And then I think was when it started changing a little bit, where it was like, I don't want to have it every day. But there's days when I did want to, and I would have it, and I'd never let myself, I made a promise that I would never feel guilty about the food, because it's just kind of pointless. Like, I've eaten it, it's gone now. I just won't have it again tomorrow. And just little things like that, but small changes. And then it was when I was 4 stone down when I started personal training. And that, I think, had a massive impact. Because I think eating right and then having a trainer, he was brilliant with nutrition as well. So he was helping me with food as well as the working out. And that kind of encouraged me more. And that was, I suppose, when I started moving away a little bit from Slimming World and just more into calorie counting and protein.
And let's chat about exercise. You know, what kind of stuff do you like to do? What do you hate to do? When you started into exercise, you know, what were the workouts like?
So when I first started, it was personal training. So I started with Shawnee B2B. And I remember when I first started with him, I was like, I have not, you know, I went to a gym one time in London when I was really overweight. I joined it for like a month, and I was again trying to start. And I remember, I think I've told this story before, a man had come up to me just after I got off the treadmill. And he was like, I just want to say, like, you're amazing. You're my motivation today. I think that's brilliant. And he was really sweet and really lovely, but it absolutely broke my heart. I was mortified, and I just was like, I clearly stand out. Like, I clearly look like a joke in this place, and I never went back. And even though he was trying to be so nice, and he probably thought he made my day and encouraged me, I remember it just really hurt me. So I hadn't been back to a gym in a couple of years. And then I thought personal training might be good because it was with my friend. And we only done it, I think, 2 or 3 days a week. And I remember the first day, he literally was like, I just want to see how much you can move. And he asked me to do like a lunge, and I think I just fell on my side. I tried to get down on my knee, and I just literally in slow motion. But the thing is, even though my biggest fear was always being laughed at, I never felt that with Sean. When I fell over, he's like, right, Gran, jump up. He was like, now do this. And he didn't even flinch at the fact that I fell over. I couldn't squat or I couldn't do anything. And that really encouraged me. So we just started really, really small. I remember he'd literally get me to sit on like the bike or go on like a rower machine, and he'd just be like, do it, you can do this. And then slowly, and I do secretly think it's your confidence. I think like there were times where I wasn't pushing myself hard enough because I'd be afraid like I looked ridiculous, you know, I done that. And I think once you change your mindset and you push yourself, you're capable of so much more. And I kind of found that with the gym. I just kept pushing myself. And I think he knew that. I'm sure like you as a personal trainer, you know when people can go further and when they're just saying no. So we just kept at him. And I eventually, after about, I think 6-7 months, I started going group training. I was terrified to do the group classes. But I was glad I'd done the PT for the first 6 months. I definitely needed that. And I think my technique was brilliant to go into group training then. And then I just started training 5 days a week. And not because I had to or because he was asking me to, I just wanted to. Every Monday to Friday before Carter wakes up, I go to the gym at 5:45. I do my workout for an hour and I come home. And I just feel so much better, and it kind of gets me going for the day. So I've actually really struggled. We're doing them via Zoom now, but I find it hard. I think it's because I like to go, like the gym is like my sacred place. When I'm at home doing the workouts, like Carter will come down and, you know, jump on my back, or he thinks it's great crack. But yeah.
And in terms of your journey, so weight loss is one thing that's happened over the course of that journey. Just from chatting to you, and we haven't met before, there's a sense of confidence, a sense of happiness that really translates, even just by interviewing. I can feel it. That's come as part of this journey as well, in terms of that confidence, the happiness, the components of being really kind of, you know, like optimistic, for want of a better word, has come from this journey.
100%. And that's something I don't think I ever expected. I never had confidence really, I suppose, growing up at all. So getting that kind of bit of confidence has been amazing. And especially, I think, like, just my mental health and my well-being has been the biggest bonus from it. Like, I always thought it was, you know, the number going down on the scales. And obviously that's helped, and like my health. But I think the happiness I've gotten from it, and just the security in myself. And like I said, the last few months my weight had fluctuated a little bit, and you'd kind of said on it earlier about you have your why, and it always has to be a strong why. And I noticed over Christmas and over New Year, I was kind of like, I feel like I just don't feel as like, not as strict, but like, if I want something, I'll have it. And I was just doing that a lot more. And then I was kind of thinking about it one day, and I was like, I think it's because my why isn't as strong anymore, because I'm happy and I feel content. So that's why it's kind of drifting. And now in the last kind of month, I suppose, with everything on at the moment, I started to feel a bit uncomfortable with myself again. My jeans were getting tighter, and I kind of started to get my why back. Like, I don't want to go back to that. I want to feel great again. So even change my mindset again, and having my why, I've been really kind of getting back on track again, and that's really helped me. But I can't remember the question now. Sorry.
Okay, that's all right.
I waffle. I talk so much.
It's great. And you know what? One of the beauties of when I chat to people and interview people is you want people to be comfortable to just talk, just rant and just chat it out. And it's fantastic to do. Okay, so exercise is a crucial component. Your food is a crucial component. Balance, just from chatting to you, is a really important thing in your life too. And not being afraid to have a chocolate bar or whatever. It's very much that 80-20 approach, you know, which is being good most of the time with the odd treat. What's been the hardest part of the last, say, 2 years of the last journey? What's the toughest bit been?
I think the toughest bit that, and I actually only speaking about with a few of the girls, we have like a group chat from the gym, and we were talking about it the other day, and everyone was like, you know, my routine is so all over the place, and I've literally been living off takeaway. I've been doing this. And sometimes I do be a little bit hard on myself, where I'm like, I don't understand why I can't have a week or two where I get takeaway every day and I eat loads of chocolate. If I'd done that, like, I would genuinely gain about 1.5 stone. Whereas I know my friends could do that for 2 weeks and they're like, oh my God, like, I'm up 2 kilos. And I'm like, I'd be up 2 kilos if I had like 2 bottles of wine and a bar of chocolate. So sometimes I think I get frustrated with that, but I have to just remind myself that I had a really unhealthy relationship with food. I had like a food addiction, and that it is just something that will be for the rest of my life. So rather than thinking of it as a diet, or I can't have that and I can't do that, I just have to be like, it's my lifestyle. And then it's my little boy's birthday in 2 weeks. Obviously he can't have a party now, so his whole thing was we'd get a takeaway. And I remember I was a bit like, and then I was like, actually no, I'm going to get the takeaway, I'm going to enjoy it, I'm going to have like the next 60 meals that I cook is going to be perfect. So I'll have the takeaway, I'll have cake. It was like over Easter weekend, I literally ate everything in sight on Easter weekend. But I was like, I still have to live my life. Do you know what I mean? I'm not going to be able to do that for the next 5 weeks, because I know I'll be in a position then where I'm like, okay, right, I have to lose 4 stone. But I know I can have a day or two where I let loose and do it. But the next 7 days or the next 2 weeks, I'm going to be really on plan. But I think apart from that, the biggest challenge, I suppose, I found was something that, although I knew it might come, I hadn't given much thought to it, and it was the excess skin. And I know that's kind of a physical thing, but that was really hard to deal with. So obviously losing 12 stone, which is like a human, basically, another person. the excess skin was really bad. So I had surgery last July on my stomach. I had the skin removed from my stomach, and the difference that made to my confidence, I didn't think it would. And then I was actually scheduled to have my next surgery 2 weeks ago, but obviously it's been postponed, whereas to have the excess skin on my arms and chest done. But that was one thing I suppose I wasn't really prepared for. I wasn't prepared for financially. It's very expensive. All those surgeries are not cheap. But it got to a point in the last year or two where, so me and Carter were living with my parents, and I was like, I am in a position I didn't think I'd be in, where I have to think of a mortgage for me and Carter or these surgeries. And I opted for the surgery. And this probably makes no sense and sounds stupid, but I genuinely think that was one of the hardest decisions I'd made in the 2 or 3 years, because it impacts all of us, and obviously means for mom and dad, me and Carter are probably going to be here for another 2 years. But it was a big decision, and something that I struggled with, I think, with my conscience. I felt very guilty about it, because I was like, I'm a mom, I'm a parent, our needs come first, but I'm kind of putting my needs first. And then a lot of people I did get a few messages about that, negative ones, but I did get an awful lot of support where people were like, you've worked hard, you do work hard. And it's a lot to do with your mental, your well-being, your happiness. And I wasn't happy. Like, you think, you're going to wake up. My dream was to wake up and say I've lost 12 stone. When I first started, I didn't think it would be possible. But I didn't think I'd wake up, lose 12 stone, and kind of look in the mirror and hate what I see and not love. You just kind of expect you're going to be so happy that you've done it, you love it. And I hated what I saw. It's hard to explain, because even though you're so proud of yourself and you want to love yourself, I didn't look how I wanted to look still. And I looked abnormal. It's not just like you look, like when you're big or whatever, you just look big. I looked different. And I think that was a really challenging time where I decided that I was going to take my savings and my money. And like I said, it's a lot of money, and I'd still love to get, after this surgery, I'd love to get my legs done. And then please God, I'll be finished. But I'll be like, it'd probably be kind of in and around 30 to 40,000 euro in total. So it's a lot of money, but I don't regret the first surgery. Like, I don't regret spending that money on myself. So that kind of leads me to believe I won't regret getting the next surgery either.
Well, one of the key pillars for life, in terms of living a healthy life, it all starts with yourself and that happiness within yourself. And if that's not there, everything else is very difficult to do.
Yeah.
Be it mortgages, be it relationships, be it work, be it whatever. Yeah. And you have to have that pillar of kind of confidence, like a foundation of a house. It's the very same thing. And by choosing to go for the surgery option, you're strengthening that pillar and creating that sense of confidence so you can do all the other stuff. Final question. We always ask people that we have on for tips for our listeners. There's lots from the interview, but if I was to ask you for a top 3 in terms of, for listeners who are looking to get healthier, to stay motivated, what's your ultimate 3 tips that you've lived by?
I think one of them would be to start small. So like, I think there's a lot of things, like I said, my dream was to wake up and say I've lost 12 stone. I think when I started on day 1 to be like, right, 12 stone, I've lost 2 pounds this week, another 11 stone, whatever to go. That's very overwhelming. And like, it's very hard to kind of get up every day and feel motivated to lose 12 stone. So I think starting small, I had a journal. So I had about 7 journals, but I started with the first one, the first day of my diet, and I wrote down absolutely everything I ate. I wrote down small goals. And I remember, if I go back to my week 1, my first goal that week was to just walk for 15 minutes, 5 days a week, and to drink 3 pints of water every single day. Like, and to someone, that's something they would do, without even thinking. That's just like, even now in my day-to-day life, that happens every day regardless. But at the time it didn't. And I remember just saying, just to start small, just set small goals. Like, you're not always going to be motivated, but you just have to be consistent. So even if I had said, like, I'll have 2 glasses of water, every day for a month, it will eventually become a habit. And all of those little things together were kind of leading me, I suppose, to my ultimate goal. And then I would say the second thing is to not be too hard on yourself. Like, it's really easy to say that. And even now I find myself slipping all the time. And even though the weight loss journey over the 2 years was incredibly hard, I do think changing my mindset and getting it to where it is now was the hardest part overall. Like, physically losing the weight was a lot easier than how I kind of speak to myself and changing my mindset. That was the hardest part. And as much as I would love to say I never have food guilt, I still definitely do. But I think it's just catching myself and reminding myself, or like worrying about, even when I said Carter mentioned the takeaway, and I was a bit like, oh God, I'm like, what is the point? Like, you're worrying about food. Like, you know what I mean? Eat the food, enjoy the food, and move on. So I think worrying about stuff like that or getting nervous, and it's easy to say because I remember the first year of my weight loss journey, I was incredibly, not strict, but I don't know how I was so motivated, but I didn't kind of say yes to everything. I was literally like, no, I have a plan, I'm on a mission, and I'm like smashing my goals. But then I think the second year I was a lot more relaxed and I suppose a bit more happier. So I think just finding that balance and just knowing that if you do have a day, or if you have 10 days, where you just eat whatever you want in sight, like tomorrow's always a new day. And even if you've like 3 or 4 bad days, there's 90 something meals in the month that you can make a lot better. So just try and not be too hard on yourself. And then I think my third tip would probably be as well, if you can, to have a little, I know not everyone would have, say, Instagram, but even if you have a little WhatsApp group with some friends, and just for that support, and when you need help or you're struggling, just to ask for it. Even if you just have one friend that you can text, just be like, oh, I'm really having a shit day, or I'm really having a hard time, like, can you just chat to me for a little while? And that really does help. And like, sometimes other people can see stuff in you that you don't say, or they might be able to remind you of things that you don't realize you've achieved. And kind of hearing that and reminding yourself, I think really does help you get refocused again. And just remembering, like I said, that I always say it, but even if you have one crap day, like genuinely get up tomorrow and it won't be crap. Just make it crap. Just get on with it and just do it.
Boom. Fantastic tips. I love it. If people want to follow you, what are your Instagram handles?
My Instagram handle is Jens_journey_IE.
Fantastic. Jennifer, Karl, thank you so much for joining us and for all your tips and content and about your whole story. It's epic. Amazing tips, and you're so normal about it. It's fantastic. So fair play to you. Well done. Thank you so much for joining us. Folks, that's it for another episode of Real Health with me, Karl Henry, in association with Laya Healthcare. I really hope you got so much from that episode. You couldn't not do. I'm inspired and motivated just chatting to Jen here. As ever, you know where we are. It's at Real Health at Independent. Start again. As ever, you know where we are. It's realhealth@independent.ie for any emails, at Karl Henry PT on Twitter and on Instagram. And don't forget to rate and review. And they are tough times, so we thought we'd bring a little competition for this week as well. We've got a couple of copies of my book to give away. Very simply, rate and review over the course of the next 7 days, and you go into the competition, and we'll announce the winners next week. Have a great week. We'll see you soon. So long.
Laya Healthcare, looking after you always. Proud sponsors of Real Health with Karl Henry.